talk about childhood trauma parent archetypes. Dr. Nicole LaPera has seen these parent archetypes show up over and over again with her patients in her clinical work. So what childhood parent archetype did you grow up with? We all have unresolved trauma. It is not the severity of the emotional pain, but it's how we respond to it and the imprint that it's left on us. Our parents and caregivers' beliefs and behaviors are unconsciously imprinted into us during childhood. These are to help you think about your primary relationships and the conditioning that you may have experienced during childhood. First, let me say that how you were treated as a child is not a reflection of who you are, and nor is it a reflection of who your parent or caregivers are. The first parent archetype is a parent who denies your reality. Here's an example. A child feels extremely uncomfortable with a family friend or a relative. The child conveys their feelings to a parent. The child is met with a response, "Oh, they're just trying to be nice. You better be respectful. You better be polite." Here the parent completely ignores the child's reality. They are teaching the child to ignore their intuition and their gut feeling. Teaching the child to distrust themselves. As a result, the child's voice of intuition begins to withdraw, leading the child to lost intuition, and inner conflict begins. The child learns that they can't trust their own judgment, and they begin to look at others to shape their reality. Denying a child's reality can take on subtle forms, such as a child coming home from school who is very upset. They convey to the parent that no other child wanted to play with them at recess. The parent figure completely ignores the child's emotional pain. They respond with well-intended words, but completely dismiss the child's feelings with words such as, "Tomorrow will be a better day. Today's only the first day of school." At that moment during recess, the child was completely distraught. They were looking for peer validation and they were rejected, which peer validation is very important for childhood development. The child needed comforting and needed to feel supported. The parent may have unconscious, unresolved childhood trauma themselves, and the child activated memories or feelings within the parent and made them feel very uncomfortable with the child's emotional distress, therefore dismissing the child's pain with well-intended words. Parents need to understand that children exceed them in their connection with their intuition. Adults tend to be lost in their own stream of thoughts and their life situations. Children are still highly intuitive, and their world is in a constant flux, and they are being shaped and formed by their caregivers at this time. Parents and caregivers have their own unprocessed childhood pain and trauma that they project on the child, consciously or unconsciously. We do not have to be a reflection of their unresolved trauma, nor do we need to live it out in our own lives and with our own children. The problem in the example of the child's experience I just shared is that they were having legitimate feelings, and instead of receiving the comfort and support that they needed, they received the message that their pain is not important or is inconsequential. Through similar experience, a child is taught that their perception of reality and their related emotional experiences are unvalid and unworthy. Now I'm going to discuss the parent archetype that does not see you. I'm going to use my own life experiences for this one. I grew up in the baby boomer era where parents and grandparents' reality was only stuck in survival mode. We used to hear all the time from our parents and grandparents and aunt and uncles that children are to be seen and not heard. The problem was we weren't seen nor heard. I have a sister at the age of 17 who tried to commit suicide from an overdose. I was 7 years old at the time, and I used to jump on her bed in the morning to wake her up. One morning she wasn't waking up and she had foam running out of her mouth. I ran out to tell my parents, and my father was getting ready for work, and he got very agitated, and he screamed at me, "Tell her to get her lazy ass out of bed." I ran back into the bedroom and proceeded to try to wake my sister. I ran back out to my parents again, and my father just got more agitated and screamed at my mother, "Go see what the hell is going on." My sister almost died that morning. I have another brother who at 34 years of age who drank himself to death. I have another brother who died not too long ago in his early 40s, who started cutting himself when he was a teenager. I would cry to him and say, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" And he would say to me, "It makes me feel better inside." Can you imagine for a moment of the emotional pain and trauma that they were holding within themselves? We were not seen or heard as children, and we are living with the consequences still today. Our parents were completely emotionally cut off. Our own parents were filled with their own childhood pain and trauma. They couldn't show any compassion or emotions to their children, for they didn't know how to regulate their own emotions. My father was completely cut off from his own emotions, and our mother was in a state of disassociation always for her self-preservation from years of physical, mental, and emotional abuse. She could not connect with us children emotionally. Our parents were only stuck in the reality of survival. As long as we had a roof over our head and clothes on our back and food in our bellies, their job was done. For they never faced their own unresolved childhood pain and trauma. Here is a more subtle, not seen archetype parent who is going from one task to another and not able to see their child in front of them. This prevented any emotional connection because the parent is simply not available. It is very painful for a child not to be seen or heard. It is upsetting for a child to be ignored. It's also confusing for a child to have to hide their true selves in order to feel love. The next parent archetype is the parent that does not model boundaries. Boundaries are clear definitions of our personal limitations. Children inherently understand boundaries and can clearly state their own. Just as a small child shakes its head no to something that they don't like. Many of us grew up in homes where parents had few boundaries and typically had a hard time maintaining the ones that they did have. Parent figures who did not understand how to use or maintain their own boundaries were unable to appropriately create limits for us. When a parent reads a child's diary, it leaves the child feeling shame or punished, depending on what was read. This teaches the child that loved ones can and do cross boundaries. A child may internalize beliefs such as boundary crossing is part of closeness, or maybe even love. As a result, allowing such boundary crossing in future relationships that they have. A child might also do the complete opposite and become very secretive and protective over their personal details. Here's another example of boundary crossing in this parent archetype. When a parent figure complains about the other parent to the child, such as during a breakup or a divorce, I have witnessed this many times in life. The parent treats the child as a peer, consciously or unconsciously. The parent may even try to get the child to take sides. The parent unloads all the things that they are upset about, the other parent's infidelity and financial issues or any other issues that they have with them. The parent is unable to see that the child is not a peer. In such cases, the child may feel overwhelmed by these details. The child needs not to be pressured into taking the parent's side in the parent's distressing situation and conflict. Putting a child in this situation causes the child complete internal emotional pain and trauma. The child is suppressing and pushing down all this emotional pain, for they don't want to upset either parent, causing mental, emotional, and physical pain either in childhood or later in life.